Imagine this. You wake up one morning, the sun filtering through your curtains, and before your feet even touch the floor, you whisper to yourself, "Today will be a good day." Not because you believe it, but because you must. Because anything less than relentless optimism feels like failure. You scroll through your phone, bright screens filled with smiling faces, captions declaring good vibes only, posts insisting that happiness is a choice. You force a smile, bury the exhaustion, and step into the world wearing your positivity like armor. But beneath it, something gnaws at you. A quiet, unspoken question. What if I don't feel good? What if I can't? You push it down. At work, a colleague asks how you're doing. Great, you say, automatic, practiced. Never mind the sleepless nights, the creeping dread you can't name. Later, a friend shares their grief, a loss, a betrayal, and without thinking, you offer, "Look on the bright side." You watch their face shudder. The conversation ends. You both walk away emptier than before. This is the paradox of toxic positivity. The louder we insist on happiness, the lonelier it gets. We live in an era where sadness is a glitch to be fixed, anger a flaw to be medicated, and doubt a weakness to be silenced. We've been sold a lie, that to be human is to be endlessly buoyant, that darkness is an aberration rather than an essential part of the whole. But what happens when the pressure to always be okay becomes the very thing that makes us break? Consider this. A study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that people who suppress negative emotions experience higher levels of stress, worse relationships, and even weakened immune systems. Another, in Emotion, revealed that those who embrace the full spectrum of their feelings, joy and sorrow, hope and despair, report greater life satisfaction in the long run. Yet culturally, we cling to the myth that pain is optional. That if we just think positive, the universe will bend to our will. But here's the unsettling truth. Forced optimism isn't enlightenment, it's avoidance. It's the spiritual bypassing of grief, the gaslighting of our own hearts. When we shame ourselves for feeling fear, we don't transcend it, we bury it alive. And buried things don't die. They fester. They resurface as anxiety, as rage, as a hollowed-out numbness that no amount of affirmation quotes can fill. So let me ask you, what are you running from when you insist everything is fine? What parts of yourself have you exiled in the name of positivity? And most importantly, what if the key to real resilience isn't in denying the darkness but in facing it? This is where the real journey begins. Not in the light, but in the shadows we've been taught to fear. You've been taught that optimism is strength, that to doubt, to fear, to grieve is to fail at life itself. But what if the real failure lies in refusing to acknowledge the full weight of being human? This isn't a new phenomenon. Centuries before Instagram affirmations and corporate wellness seminars, philosophers and psychologists were wrestling with the same tension: the human instinct to seek happiness and the unavoidable reality of suffering. Friedrich Nietzsche, the thinker who dared to stare into the abyss, warned us, whoever fights monsters should see to it that he does not become a monster. In our desperate battle against negativity, have we become something just as dangerous? A culture that pathologizes normal human emotion? Carl Jung saw this coming. He spoke of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we disown, suppress, or pretend don't exist. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, he wrote, but by making the darkness conscious. Yet toxic positivity demands the opposite: a relentless fixation on the light, a denial of the shadow. And in doing so, it doesn't eliminate suffering, it just forces it underground where it mutates into something far more insidious. Consider the modern world's obsession with good vibes only. It's not accidental. It's the logical endpoint of a society that values productivity over authenticity, convenience over depth. Aldous Huxley's Brave New World envisioned a dystopia where pain was erased with pills and platitudes. But I don't want comfort, the savage protests. I want God, I want poetry, I want real danger, I want freedom, I want goodness. I want sin. Isn't that what we're missing? The permission to be fully alive, which means fully vulnerable, fully flawed? Psychologically, the mechanism is clear. When we label certain emotions as bad, anger, sadness, fear, we don't stop feeling them. We just stop processing them. Research in neuroscience shows that unexpressed emotional pain doesn't vanish. It embeds itself in the body, contributing to chronic stress, inflammation, even autoimmune disorders. The mind-body connection isn't a metaphor. It's a biological fact. And yet, we keep smiling. Because here's the cruel irony: toxic positivity thrives on shame. It convinces us that if we're struggling, it's because we're not trying hard enough, not meditating enough, not journaling enough, not believing enough. It turns healing into a performance, self-improvement into a never-ending hustle. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust and wrote Man's Search for Meaning, understood this better than anyone. He observed that those who coped best in the camps weren't the blindly optimistic. They were the ones who allowed themselves to feel despair, yet still found purpose in the midst of it. What man actually needs is not a tensionless state, he wrote, but rather the striving and struggling for a worthwhile goal. But how do we strive when we're too busy pretending we're already there? This is the hidden cost of forced optimism. It robs us of the very struggles that give life meaning. It tells us that happiness is a destination, not a fleeting moment in a vast emotional landscape. And in doing so, it makes true contentment impossible. So let's ask the real question. Who benefits from a world where no one admits they're hurting? Is it you? Or is it the systems that profit from your relentless pursuit of an impossible ideal? The answer might unsettle you. You don't notice the erosion at first. Like water wearing down stone, the constant pressure to stay positive reshapes you in imperceptible ways, until one day, you wake up and realize you've forgotten what your authentic emotions even feel like. This is the silent tragedy of toxic positivity. It doesn't just suppress negative emotions, it annihilates emotional intelligence itself. Studies in developmental psychology reveal that children taught to just be happy grow into adults who cannot process complex emotions, navigate conflict, or build deep relationships. Their emotional vocabulary shrinks to binary terms, good or bad, with no tolerance for the necessary, messy in-between. Consider the neurological implications. When we chronically suppress negative emotions, the amygdala, the brain's threat detection system, becomes hyperactive. MRI scans show that people who habitually avoid difficult emotions actually experience more intense emotional flooding when stress inevitably breaks through their psychological barriers. The very mechanism meant to protect them becomes their undoing. But the damage extends far beyond the individual. In workplaces, toxic positivity creates cultures of silent suffering. Employees smile through burnout, calling it passion. Managers dismiss legitimate concerns with empty mantras like, "Teamwork makes the dream work." A 2022 study in the Journal of Organizational Behavior found that teams operating under enforced optimism had 37% higher turnover rates. Their members left not because they couldn't handle challenges, but because they couldn't handle the pretense that challenges didn't exist. In relationships, it breeds profound loneliness. When every conversation becomes an exchange of performative cheerfulness, true intimacy withers. Psychologist John Gottman's famous research on marital stability reveals that couples who allow space for complaints, anger, and sadness have stronger bonds than those who insist on constant harmony. The most toxic phrase in any relationship isn't, "I'm angry with you," it's "just cheer up." Even our spiritual lives become casualties. Ancient wisdom traditions, from Buddhist mindfulness to Christian lament, understood that transcendence requires first fully inhabiting our human experience. But the modern wellness industry has commodified enlightenment into 30-day positivity challenges and gratitude journals used as emotional band-aids. We've replaced the dark night of the soul with a perpetual artificial dawn. The most insidious consequence? The colonization of your inner world. When you internalize the belief that certain emotions are unacceptable, you don't just hide them from others, you hide them from yourself. You develop what psychologists call emotional agnosia, the inability to recognize or name what you're feeling. The result isn't peace, but a muted existence where joy feels just as hollow as sorrow because neither is fully experienced. Ask yourself, when was the last time you let yourself be angry without apology? Grieve without seeking a silver lining? Feel lost without rushing to find a lesson? Your answers will reveal how much territory you've ceded to this silent war on authentic human experience. But here's what they don't want you to know. In that surrendered territory lies your greatest power. The revolution begins with a single, radical act: allowing yourself to be human. This isn't about rejecting happiness, it's about rejecting the dictatorship of mandatory happiness. History's most profound thinkers, from the Stoics to the existentialists, understood a truth we've forgotten. True resilience comes not from avoiding darkness, but from learning to navigate it. 1. Reclaim the right to be whole. Jean-Paul Sartre warned us that hell is other people, but he might have added that hell is also the versions of ourselves we feel forced to perform. The first act of rebellion is to stop performing. When asked, "How are you?" try answering honestly, even if just once a day. Not with trauma dumping, but with truth. "I'm tired. I'm figuring it out. Today is hard." Keep an emotional inventory, not a gratitude journal. Track moments of frustration, envy, or sadness without judgment. These aren't failures, they're data points mapping your humanity. Neurologically, this practice rebuilds what toxic positivity eroded. The insula, the brain region responsible for interoception, your sense of internal states. A 2021 study in Nature Neuroscience found that people who regularly named their emotions accurately developed greater emotional resilience over time. 2. Seek negative capability. The poet John Keats coined this term for being in uncertainties, mysteries, doubts, without any irritable reaching after fact or reason. In modern terms, stop trying to fix every uncomfortable feeling. When grief arises, don't rush to everything happens for a reason. Try, this hurts and that's okay. Practice sitting with discomfort. Set a timer for 5 minutes and simply observe an emotion without analyzing or reframing it. This isn't passive resignation, it's active acceptance. Viktor Frankl's logotherapy teaches that meaning often comes not from changing circumstances, but from changing our relationship to what we feel. 3. Challenge the positivity industrial complex. Behind every good vibes only post lies an unspoken threat: conform or be excluded. Recognize these messages for what they are: social control disguised as self-help. Audit your media consumption. Unfollow accounts that peddle perpetual positivity. Seek out voices that embrace nuance. The It's So You Want to Talk About podcast, writers like Cheryl Strayed or Ocean Vuong. In workplaces, reframe positive thinking as clear thinking. Sometimes the most optimistic thing you can do is admit a problem exists. A 2023 study in Harvard Business Review found that leaders who acknowledged collective struggles, instead of insisting on relentless optimism, built 23% more trust within their teams. 4. Rediscover the sacredness of shadows. Carl Jung's shadow work wasn't about eliminating darkness, it was about dialoguing with it. Your anger holds boundaries. Your envy reveals desires. Your sadness carves depth into joy. Try projection spotting. When someone else's emotion irritates you, why are they so negative? Ask, what part of me am I seeing in them? Use creative expression. Write a letter from your sadness to yourself, or let anger out through vigorous exercise. Emotions demand movement, not suppression. 5. Build a fortress of authentic connection. Toxic positivity thrives in isolation. The antidote is finding islands of truth, people who won't flinch when you say, I'm not okay. Initiate vulnerability exchanges. I've been feeling really overwhelmed lately. Have you ever experienced that? Look for nonverbal permission, a friend's sigh of relief when they realize they don't have to pretend with you. Research from the University of Texas shows that just one authentic relationship can reduce the psychological toll of emotional suppression by up to 40%. The paradox of liberation. Here's the secret they never told you. When you stop forcing positivity, you start discovering something far more powerful: possibility. The possibility that joy becomes richer when it's not compulsory. Pain becomes bearable when it's witnessed. Life becomes vibrant when it's not filtered through the lie of constant brightness. This isn't the end. It's the threshold. You've been searching for light in all the wrong places. Not in the denial of darkness, but in its embrace. Not beyond your humanity, but deep within it. Here lies the revelation that changes everything. What if the most empowering perspective isn't positivity at all, but integration? The alchemy of opposites. Ancient alchemists didn't seek to destroy base metals. They sought to transmute them. This is your task now, to stop seeing emotions as positive or negative, and start recognizing them as transformative energy. Anger becomes the fire that forges boundaries. Grief becomes the water that cleanses and renews. Fear becomes the radar that detects true danger. Doubt becomes the scalpel that excises false beliefs. The Japanese art of kintsugi, repairing broken pottery with gold, understands this truth. The breakage itself becomes part of the beauty. Your fractures aren't flaws to hide, they're sacred geometry. The death of binary thinking. We've been trapped in a lie that says, pain or joy, vulnerability or strength, realism or hope. The revolutionary truth? These aren't opposites, they're partners. Neuroscientists now confirm what poets always knew. The same brain regions that process physical pain process emotional pain. But here's what's extraordinary: those same regions also light up during profound joy and connection. Your capacity to feel deeply is non-negotiable currency. You cannot selectively numb. When you suppress sorrow, you inadvertently dampen ecstasy. When you exile anger, you weaken passion. The ecology of emotions. Consider an old-growth forest. Decaying logs feed new saplings. Lightning fires renew the soil. Predators maintain the balance. Your emotional ecosystem works the same way. Clinical psychologist Dr. Joan Rosenberg's research shows that 90 seconds of fully felt emotion is often all it takes for a wave of anger, shame, or fear to pass through the body. The suffering comes not from the emotion itself, but from our resistance to it, the stories we tell about what it means to feel this way. Your new enlightenment. This isn't about lowering standards, it's about expanding reality. The 21st century's most vital skill won't be forced optimism, but emotional agility, precision identification. Instead of "I'm stressed," ask, "Is this overwhelm? Overstimulation? Moral outrage?" Each requires different action. Contextual framing. This isn't bad, it's information. Loneliness signals need for connection. Anxiety often points to unspoken values. Ritualized release. Write and burn letters to past selves. Scream into pillows or dance shaking rituals. Create worry periods to contain rumination. The final invitation. Stand before the mirror tonight and say this: "I renounce the tyranny of should. I reclaim my wholeness. From now on I will feel." Not as an obstacle to overcome, but as a compass to follow. This is how we outgrow the cult of positivity, not by fighting it but by transcending its need. When you stop splitting yourself into acceptable and unacceptable parts, you discover something astonishing. The shadow was never your enemy. It was the womb of your becoming.